Good morning, everybody. You're up all bright and early this morning. I'm really delighted to welcome you to the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Pavilion. We have had a really busy day yesterday and we've got a really busy day today. But I'm really excited we get to kick off with this conversation this morning. And I've got some fantastic panellists with me to talk about the exciting work that we're doing around Ministry of Defence and some of the development and opportunities that Huntingdonshire has to offer. And in fact, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough has to offer. I'm Sarah Conboy. I'm the leader at Huntingdonshire District Council. I'm joined today by the leader of the opposition. Ross, would you like to wave at people? Cross-party politics working together. So when people say, you know, that we don't all work together for the greater good of our residents and our communities, this is what happens in action in our part of the world, and particularly around this particular project. So we're going to talk to you a bit today about Project Fairfax, but we're also going to talk to you about the wider opportunities around the North Huntingdonshire cluster, and then further afield across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. There will be an opportunity at the end to ask some questions. Don't make them too difficult, because otherwise I'm still early in the morning. But please, we will be around after the panel. I'm really, really happy to talk to you and to follow up any conversations with you. I'm also joined by colleagues from Peterborough. Adrian, I'm going to embarrass you. Would you like to wave? Any other colleagues? Pam, Huntingdonshire? Any other? Yeah, Mike over there, Huntingdonshire. But we're here on behalf of the whole of the combined authority. So please do come and talk to us. So we're going to talk to you about utilising MOD sites to the max. We are very fortunate in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to have a number of sites, historic sites, that have been operational over a long period of time. And in fact, many are still operational, but the general public hadn't always realised that they were still active and busy. So if you know Huntingdonshire, you might already know about RAF Wyton, which was a flying base, and we're going to talk about that. And we've got Ed here today to tell you a bit more about that. You might know that we've got RAF Conboy, which is supporting NATO's intelligence service and its operations across the European front. You might know that we've got RAF Molesworth, which is NATO's intelligence headquarters. So that's just within Huntingdonshire. And then slightly further afield, if you go up to Peterborough, we've got Wyton, which is a flying base. If you go further across towards Suffolk, you've got Mildenhall and Lakenheath. We've got Sibson Airfield, which is not an operational base, but is a former airfield looking for redevelopment. So we have lots and lots of opportunities around some of our active MOD sites, our former MOD sites, and lots of opportunities that I'm really pleased that our colleagues from Homes England and from Urban&Civic are going to talk to you about. So let's do some introductions. I'm going to start at this end. Ed, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yep. Thank you, Sarah. So I'm Wing Commander at Ackland. I currently work at RAF Wyton. RAF Wyton is a cyber and special operations command station. And my activity really at the moment and reason for being here is I'm the project officer for Project Fairfax, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail later. But it's really us looking at trying to develop an ecosystem for defence around Wyton. And we really want to talk about the opportunities that are there to work with our industry partners to develop housing and other things in the location to support the station.
Thank you, Ed. If I go next to Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Britton from the master developer Urban&Civic. So we like a good brownfield site. We've got 2 or 3 former site MOD sites that we're working with. We've been working quite a lot with MOD and DIO around their sort of disposal process, particularly to support the kind of need for housing, but also doing it in a way that brings money back into MOD to reinvest in future housing for their current teams. So we are actively delivering Conboy Weald, which is the airfield bit that the military don't need anymore because they don't need to take off. They've got everything going on in the sky now. So we do Conboy Weald and also the former army barracks at Waterbeach. So those are 2 things. We're also involved in just the tail end of Northstowe Phase 1 from our L&Q colleagues who we bought L&Q. So that's in total about 27,000 homes being delivered on former MOD sites just in Cambridgeshire and more to come. So lots to talk about, including the heritage and culture stuff we do.
Thank you very much. And finally, Julia.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Julia Krause. I'm the Regional Assistant Director for the East at Homes England, and I'm also the lead for our Strategic Place partnership with the Combined Authority. So that was agreed with the Mayor last year. And we have worked really closely with the Combined Authority to look at priority locations for growth and how the agency can support to do that. And I can come on to talk a little bit about what that means for Wyton. And as an agency, we work a lot with the MOD. We have a couple of trailblazers, including RAF Wyton, to look at how we can work with the MOD to unlock housing as well as wider economic growth. As well as in other parts of the country, so places like Barrow and down in Plymouth as well.
Thank you, Julia. And just a little bit of context. Some of you will have been in the pavilion yesterday when our Mayor, Paul Bristow, was talking about growth. But if you didn't hear the latest news, we're really ambitious as an authority, and I lead on growth in terms of chairing the committee for the Mayor. We're going for 3% growth. Most people are quite happy at 1%. 2% is a stretch, 3% is incredibly ambitious, but that speaks volumes to Cambridge's and Peterborough's ambition. And that's not just homes, that's commercial. So that's making sure our businesses are growing at the same sort of rate. So if you're here as a house builder, lots of opportunities. If you're here as a business owner, or you work with businesses, or you're planning, lots and lots of opportunities right across the piece. We're known across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough for advanced manufacturing, particularly in our part in Huntingdonshire. We're known for life sciences, mostly that's associated with Cambridge, but it is a much wider ecosystem that's connected. Agritech, an increasingly emerging and important sector. Digital and AI, again, mostly around Huntingdonshire, but also around Cambridgeshire and into Peterborough. And then energy and clean tech, as well as defence. So all of that is part of our wider ecosystem. Now, on your chairs, and I'm sorry because I pinched yours, James, on the chairs, you will find some more information about some of the things we're going to talk about today, but don't put your heads in it at the moment, because I'm going to just ask Ed, Project Fairfax. We keep talking about Project Fairfax, and lots of people will kind of be going, what's Project Fairfax? Do you just want to give just a very quick intro so that people know when we talk about it, what it might include?
Okay, so Project Fairfax is something that we've been really working on at Wyton for probably about the last year. Really, as I said at the beginning, what we want to do is we want to develop an ecosystem that will support what we do at Wyton, the activities we do, and bring us in conjunction with both the industry partners we work with, industry partners we don't work with at the moment. The SDR and the Defence Industrial Strategy both talk very seriously about dual-use technology and the fact that we're not just looking at developing defence capabilities, we want to develop capabilities that are broader support across the whole community. And it's also the bit that then supports the whole of the station, because clearly it's not just about the defence work we do, it's about the support tech that we need on the site as well. The way that this has come about is that actually, one of our sister organisations in the States works in St. Louis, and they've created an ecosystem for geospatial intelligence around the St. Louis area. And what we're really trying to do is mirror that activity that they're doing, work with industry, work with academia, develop the skills that we need in the area to work for us. Again, Wyton is about a 50-50 military and civil service site. So again, we need to make sure that we've got people in the local community that we can employ to do the jobs we need them to do. So we want to work across the community and do that. And the final bit for us that came out of it is, again, the SDR talks about defence being a whole of society activity. So what we want to do is reignite that awareness of what goes on at Wyton. So Wyton during the Second World War was the home of the Pathfinders and was key to success in the Second World War. But actually what we do there today is just as important as what we did 80 years ago. So what we want to do is make sure our local community knows how important we are now and what we do now, and bring that whole of society approach to what we're doing. So that's really what Fairfax is about.
Thank you, Ed. And I did share with Ed that, some of our local communities sort of said, we didn't know they were still doing that there, because we didn't tell people for quite a long time. But now you can find quite a lot of information, and that's why people like Ed are able to come out and talk about the things you do and share that opportunity. And if you haven't realised, government's top priorities at the moment, this particular location and Project Fairfax is number one in terms of their defence priorities. So it's got government attention, government support, because it's about our capabilities, not just now but into the future. So I'm going to ask an opening question for the panel. So the country needs housing. and we in Huntingdonshire say the country needs homes as opposed to just houses. And there's an ambition to build 1.2 million homes by the end of this Parliament. So it's an ambitious programme. Oakenbury Weald and Waterbeach are two excellent examples of how we can use surplus sites. So what are the benefits of using our sites around the MOD installations that we have? And what could we use it for? Housing, but what else? I'm going to start with Rebecca.
Thank you. It's a very good question. I think for us, the opportunity for across Cambridge and Peterborough, across the east of England, really, is that amazing defence legacy of an area of the country that, you know, defended our shores so much through the Second World War, through the Cold War, that has left this pattern of brownfield sites. The amazing thing about a brownfield site, from our perspective, is generally it's in single ownership. Normally, it's within a single local authority boundary. They are well connected because they're used to kind of having people coming in there to work and working around it. And the scale of them provides an opportunity to do something really special. One of the big arguments that we make, and I think Homes England support in lots of ways, that while there's room for lots of infill development in different places to deliver the number of homes that the country needs, we do need to start thinking about delivery on a far more strategic scale. And while some of those numbers are quite scary often for local communities, what a big site like a military site can deliver is not just the housing, not just the homes, but the schools, the parks, the play areas, and all of those things that a super strategic site like Oakenbury Weald, like Waterbeach can deliver. So what worries local communities is often housing but not infrastructure. What these sites deliver is infrastructure, whether that's the roads and rails and cycle links, but also alongside the schools and play areas. What's brilliant about the former airfields, if you think about Waterbeach, for example, partly because it had the Royal Engineers there, we've got lakes there, we've got woodlands there, there's a former golf course which we're making a conservation area. There's all sorts of legacy items and also buildings that provide brilliant meanwhile uses. So whether that's community markets or space for R&D and innovation and piloting, they have an ability to deliver something today, as well as create something that transforms into a really high quality place to live and to work. The scale of Oakenbury enables us to have the enterprise zone alongside homes, so you've got a real sustainable community there with homes and jobs in the same place. And obviously the connections to Wyton and Molesworth, you know, enable this North Hunts opportunity cluster to come forward. So we love a brownfield site. We also do amazing sustainability on them. We've got recycling ability of all of the very high-grade concrete that the military tend to leave behind, so that can all be recycled and reused on site. So it enables us to use our kind of near zero carbon commitments is part of, because it is a brownfield site that we can reuse and recycle, as well as create something wonderful.
Thank you. And Julia?
I mean, you know, for the agency, the 1.5 million homes is a huge priority, and we have a very clear mandate from the Minister about using all tools at our disposal to actually to make sure that's delivered. And that's a combination of everything. It's a sort of whole industry approach to really get there. We need everything. We need the brownfield sites, the greenfield sites, you know, everything to really make that happen. And what's been really I mean, I sort of see us as a bit of an enabler to a lot of this. So we've worked really closely with Urban&Civic at Waterbeach, for example, and elsewhere, to look at how we enable the infrastructure, how we make sure a lot of that infrastructure is funded up front to make sure that there's great places from the get-go. We also are master developing Northstowe, and you've mentioned Northstowe already, so that the agency's heavily involved there. So we're really used to these sort of big MOD sites, and there's a huge opportunity there. And really, you know, I mean, at Wyton, as I mentioned in my introduction, you know, we've got the Trailblazer, and we've also, through the SPP, been working really closely on kind of what that starts to look like, what's actually needed to support that scale of jobs growth, housing growth, and whether that's infrastructure, whether that's wider sort of approach within, you know, how we coordinate ourselves across public and private sectors. That, you know, that's going to be hugely important, because to deliver the kind of scale of the ambition, it really needs all of those things to come together.
Thank you, Julia. And Ed, you've given us a sort of a sense of the sorts of things you'd like to see on your site. You know, if I came and stood on that sort of a currently vacant airfield, what would I see in the next couple of years? What's it going to look like?
I mean, I think for us, and if we kind of talk about the housing bit first, so Wyton as a station, currently we have about 2,500 staff. Over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to get another 1,000 as more capabilities move up to Wyton. And that's kind of the reason why we're really emphasising what we want to do at Wyton at the moment, because it is clearly been identified, as Sarah says, by Defence as being a key site. Obviously, as that becomes a hub for much of the activity we do, we do, and I'm a homeowner, plenty of people want to own their own homes. They don't necessarily want to live as a military person in the housing that the military provides us, although we need good housing for our people that are provided by the system. But people also want to be able to buy a home and identify somewhere as being where they live, being the place that they belong. And actually the fact that Wyton will become that for many people for the whole of their career means that for us it's really important that there's housing close by, so they're not commuting too far. I like the fact that at the moment, because I do currently live in military housing, that I only have to walk 5 minutes to get into work. I don't want to have to do the hour-long commute that I did, or hour and a half that I used to do before I joined the military. So for us it's kind of having that housing that kind of is affordable to our people, but also a flexible opportunity. Again, we've got young civil servants who may not want to buy, they may just want to rent. We've got others that've got families that they want employment for their families, they want education for their families. So again, the facilities that are available and could be available as we develop the Wyton airfield site provide those opportunities to ensure that our people have got the housing they want. But the other bit that Fairfax wants to be able to do is support the developers of the land, and when we look at the employment element of the development, to allow us to develop opportunities for the type of industries that we want to work alongside. Again, as we become one of the single hubs within the UK for the work that we do, we want to make sure that businesses, if they want to work alongside us, can have the type of business accommodation that they want to use for that. So clearly we're not in kind of the line of things we need manufacturing activity. So actually we want kind of the lab spaces and the other things that are useful for the type of work we do. So that's really what we're looking for. But for us, it's really making somewhere feel as if it's kind of the place where people want to be. So again, it's the schooling, it's all the other things that again our people want as well.
And that's a lovely segue, actually. I'm going off piste already, but you're really good at community making, because you make places that people want to be. So I have that as an inside line because I've been to Auchenbury lots of times. But just explain to people, if you came to Auchenbury, it doesn't look like a regular housing estate or housing estates. It's a community, and you did that from day one. So tell us a bit about how you achieved that.
I think there's two really key things to that. One is actually being able, when you have a bigger site like this, to look at the master planning, to look at a design that really drives good behaviours and the things that people want. So the ability to walk to school safely, the ability to kind of have accessible green space and play areas right next to where you live, being able to kind of walk to shops, all the things that we know people want are the things that if you can design a large place in one go, you can do. We were then very fortunate to be able to draw on Homes England's loan facility to mean that actually if you can infrastructure a whole phase, you can put in place all of those green spaces and play areas early doors, and then the house builders come and build within their parcels. So from day one, people have got kind of access to a community shop, which is subsidised, but that works until then Co-op have got enough roofs to actually have a commercial venture there. So we work quite hard on those meanwhile and pop-up uses that work for amenity, alongside making sure those play spaces are there. And linked into that, what's extraordinary about sites like Auchenbury and Waterbeach is, in some ways they are brownfield sites, but this footprint that you have from the military, the taxiways, being able to become kind of linear parks that connect the school to the homes, to the co-op and the health centre, is quite key. You can sort of flip some of the way that the grid system works on a military site very much into something that's very legible for people, that is spaces that they can enjoy, and that's part of the thrill of kind of working on these sites.
And Julia, from a Homes England point of view, you're Homes England, you're not Houses England. What's always your aspiration? What do you like to be able to see that sort of allows you to say it's not only the numbers, but it's the places we want to create?
It's the placemaking. I mean, I suppose quite a good example of that is a couple of days ago we signed Homes for Nature. So, it's about more than just the homes. It's about great placemaking and making sure that, there's that those homes sit alongside jobs and they're in the places that people want them and need them. We've clearly got a huge mandate from government. We've got, as of the 1st of April, a new bank, a new grant funding programme, and a new social and affordable housing fund. So that's hugely exciting for us. So looking at kind of how we deploy those to make really to sort of enable really balanced communities. And Rebecca's already talked to how we've enabled that at Oldcombe Weald, and we seek to do that sort of across it's sort of in partnership across both government and with the private sector to make sure that those things can happen.
And Ed, coming back to Fairfax, which if I don't get into a conversation at least once a day, I haven't met my quota. And that and Option E, I'm smiling at Ross at that point. That's local government reorganisation. In terms of Fairfax, just tell us a bit more about the actual sort of sectors that we might be interested in, because there'll be people in this room thinking, well, I don't know, do I need to be a big defence company, or are there sort of a wider ecosystem of people that you'd quite like to be on your doorstep?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's kind of really a broad spectrum. Yes, it is defence, and there are clearly a number of prime contractors that we work with extensively already. But much of the work we do is about data. So obviously, we need to be able to process our data, make sure we're working with it correctly. So it isn't just a defence business. It is many of the other organisations, many of the other industry partners that are in the local area. Again, Cambridge and everything that's going on in the Cambridge itself and with the university, again, a lot of that is about data as well. So data is really important to us too. But it's really about ideas, and for us it's about innovating in a way that makes sure that we go about our task as defence in the best way that we can. And I think that's kind of, again, and kind of there's a question in where we're talking today about why are we doing Fairfax now, and the main reason is we'd already come to the conclusion that we wanted that ecosystem, that we want to bring around us industry and academia and local authorities and the local community to work with us to deliver for defence. But the Strategic Defence Review talks about innovation 100 times. We're very aware in defence that we haven't been the centre of innovation, but we need to start harnessing that. Again, the SDR talks about defence being key to growth. And again, that's one of the reasons why growth is one of the 6 sectors, both in CPCA and HDC's plans as far as where we're trying to go. So again, defence growth and defence being key to that growth is kind of one of the key areas that we have at the moment as well. So that's kind of really why. But yeah, it's pretty much every sector. And then it's also the sports service sectors as well, because clearly we've got to be fed, we've got to be housed, we've got to have all of our facilities engineered and make sure that everything works on the site as well. So it isn't just about the specific defence bit, it's also about the support sector as well.
And I think what's interesting is yesterday I discovered that I already knew that we were home to lots of unicorns. So that's those high-performing startup businesses that hit the fantastic threshold of earning significant amounts of income for our country. But I discovered yesterday that Niobolt is our latest one, and it's on our doorstep. And I think one of the really interesting things is it's all the technologies we don't yet have that might emerge tomorrow, next week, next month, the next couple of years. So if you're in the room and you're thinking, actually, you haven't mentioned something we do currently, or we know about, or we work with, the answer is that's kind of what this whole project is about. It's encouraging that wider ecosystem. And if you don't know Huntingdonshire well, it's the place that you can get around really, really easily. And we often joke it's the place nobody's heard of, because often you will go through us on the North-South Rail. So if you came up by train from London, you'll have gone through Huntingdonshire and you'll have gone past Huntingdon Station. If you've come up on the A1, you'll have come through Huntingdonshire and Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. You'll have come right past my colleagues in Peterborough, and I've got the leader from Peterborough here. Shabina, would you just like to wave, because we've already introduced Ross. So again, cross-party working, Labour leader, Conservative opposition, Lib Dem, really important, we all work together. You'll also know that we are very close to London Stansted, that the Mayor would like to name London Cambridge, but I don't think we'll get away with that. So we're very close to London Stansted, London Luton. We're also very close to both London airports and actually to the East Midlands, depending on where you live in our region. So we're really, really connected. And of course, we've got M1, M11, A14, which operates a bit like a motorway, all coming through our region. And in terms of a bit of a shout out, we have the land and space, don't we, for a train station at Oldcombe. So a bit like the Mayor is really would like to get Ely sorted, we'd quite like to open the station, because we've got the land, we've got the space, and that would then give us a train station that was very convenient for Ed and his colleagues, rather than the Huntingdon one, which is about 10 minutes away, so it's still close. And if you haven't caught up with East West Rail. That is coming right up to Huntingdonshire. It'll be slightly over the border in Bedfordshire, but actually that's the north-south, east-west connection between Oxford and Cambridge. So in terms of commuting patterns and people that don't live very far away, Ed, actually suddenly we will open up a whole new raft of people who can live in places that currently to drive would take quite a while, but actually to hop on a train going east-west and then to hop on a train going north-south suddenly becomes really easy. So lots of things happening. I'm going to move on just a little bit. We've got a local growth plan, and in fact my head of planning's here. Clara, would you like to wave at people? And lots of us already have local plans in production already existing. So we've got lots of green spaces, lots of brownfield sites that we've already identified as being available. The linkage across our system is really important, particularly around advanced manufacturing and digital tech. So I'm going to ask our colleagues here the question, what do you think our attendees need to understand about the dual use growth opportunities in our region, and give some examples? And I did prep them for this, so I haven't just thrown that at them completely. Julia.
I've already mentioned our role on with the strategic place partnership that we have with the combined authority, and so that has largely focused around some of the key local growth plan priorities. Me and my team, the agency has funded some really great pieces of work to drive, our understanding of those of some really key projects. We've just talked about Peterborough. I'm on a panel for Peterborough tomorrow morning, so we've got a huge amount going on there, and also across the wider combined authority area. So there's a huge amount going on, and it really gives us an opportunity to be sort of led by local priorities, local ambitions, which I think is really important to us as an agency. It means that we because we have a national focus, and I certainly have a regional focus, it means we're really sort of tuned in to what the priorities look like, where those big opportunities are for growth, both in the short term and in the longer term, and where our support is needed. So, there's a huge amount of opportunity. We've touched on the likes of Waterbeach, where actually we funded moving the station further north to accommodate that, the wider site as well, which is 11,000 homes in total. So it's a really significant site. We're delivering North Stowe as well, and obviously RAF Wyton is a really big priority for both Huntingdonshire and for the Mayor.
And I think one of the really important things is the amount of time that we're spending working with you, sort of on a practical basis. We're in meetings on a fairly regular basis, talking about what's the next project, what is the next thing we need to unlock, who do we need in the room, who do we need to go and work with that we might not yet have a contact with.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sometimes that's funding, sometimes that's seed funding for the projects. Ultimately, that might be capital funding, and sometimes it's just our time. And convening. The agency can convene across government, across partners and stakeholders, and I think sometimes that can almost be just as powerful as well.
Well, sometimes it helps us unlock the things where we get stuck somewhere, not intentionally, but it's that who can have a conversation with whom, and then how do we then use that then so that we can take forward the things that we're finding a bit tricky. But actually, if we could just get the right people to have the conversation, and I know for many people on a practical basis, it's the who you know and who knows somebody who knows somebody. So that's a really important part of sort of our offer in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. What about for you?
I think the cross-party collaboration across Cambridge and Peterborough, and the kind of aspiration that's set out in the in previous plans and in this current local growth plan, is really important to us. If I take my master developer hat off for a minute and just think of us as a business, we have invested millions and millions in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough because it is a pro-growth authority, because of that problem-solving mentality that kind of comes across everything. And if I think about the other businesses we work with at Auckland Enterprise Campus, a lot of them will have locations across the county. So if I think of kind of AM Fresh and they've got some facilities in East Cambs, they've also got offices in Peterborough. They're looking for locations where they can do different bits of their processing in a kind of close by way, and therefore think about the kind of property offering and the price points and the skills and the ability for people to travel to do the jobs that they need. Nobody thinks about that in isolation, and so I think the more joint working there is between Peterborough and Huntingdonshire and Cambridgeshire and East Cam, is really important. That it's not competing with each other, it's collaborating to get the best for the whole of the area. And I think that's been a really key point for us, particularly working in Hunts, but also in South Cambs, that is an important aspect to it. Because none of the businesses we work with really think about the geographies, but what was always a key vision for Auckland Enterprise Campus was to almost fill in a bit of space between the ideas of Cambridge and the growth that's there, and all of the kind of manufacturing history and fastest growing of Peterborough, that Huntingdonshire has these phenomenal businesses that sit, quite a lot of small SMEs and micro SMEs, providing a bit of a space that gives some identity and profile to what Huntingdonshire can offer within that mix is quite key. And I think what all of the partners in the local authorities are doing at the moment in Cambridge and Peterborough is articulating that ambition, but also evidencing it. I mean, the incubator that we got at Auckland, I think our chief exec proudly says consented in 36 days. Yes. You know, that was because there was a joint vision behind what was needed for the area. There was the ability from all partners to think about quick delivery. Homes England funding was a kind of key part of that. Our investment was key to kind of get everything going at Auckland. You know, and that's been sort of full ever since. We've got Incubator 2, we've got, you know, now 1.5 million square foot of commercial space delivered against Brexit and all those things that have been a bit of a challenge. That only works because of the connections that we've got, because of the partnership that we've got. Housing is a big thing alongside that, as is connections, and we've learnt so much from businesses coming to Auckland or thinking about Auckland or wanting to go to Waterbeach around affordable places to rent space, to build buildings for business, but also the access to the workforce, access to the skills, all the things that Ed was talking about that would kind of keep him awake at night for Project Fairfax. That is a fundamental. And I think the beauty of Cambridge and Peterborough underneath all of that is the quality of life that everything offers, because of the cities, because of the market towns, because of our amazing green spaces and connected fens, all those things. It is somewhere that is desirable, as well as having an aspiration. So, you know, our time is now was the phrase we've used before. And that, you know, all of these things do come together in Cambridge and Peterborough.
And Ed, you know that I've been working, so when I'm not a councillor and when I don't not do my day job, because most of us are multi-hatted, I've been doing some work for the RAF for the last nearly 6 years in terms of building relationships between our visiting American forces and our RAF partners and our civilian world, which is a really important part because, and for me, it's also NATO, because I've got people who visit and come and work here who are from lots of different countries, not just our American visitors. You and I sort of had a conversation, and I had a conversation with your station commander not that long ago in the grand scale. Give us a bit of a sense of sort of, you know, how it's progressed, because it's unusual because it's progressed really quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the clearly as Defence we've got those close relationships with our other colleagues as well, but we recognise that, again, much of what goes on at Molesworth and with us at Wyton, we're all connected. So we need to learn from each other of what each other's doing and kind of basically build that relationship. And again, if they're doing a bit of innovation, why don't we step on the back of the innovation they're doing? We don't need to keep building the same model. We actually need to work together. And really, that's kind of the same thing when you kind of start looking at kind of that dual use capability as well. And again, Defence Industrial Strategy is very clear that we need to make more of dual use capabilities, particularly in kind of the less kind of sharp end, as some people would describe it, of the military. So kind of not putting weapon effects on locations, but actually doing kind of the broader understand that is very much what Wyton is all about. There are technologies out there that kind of support the work that we do that we don't know about at the moment. We're not necessarily, and haven't been, that good at understanding everything that every organisation's doing. We're not big enough to be able to know what everybody's doing, but what we want to do is start developing an environment in which companies who want to work with us or who have capabilities and skills that we probably at the moment don't even know we need, but actually will be really useful to our development. So that's why that dual use kind of piece is really important, and that's why Defence Industrial Strategy talks about it to a high level, that we need to be starting to get more after dual use. But it also works the other way. So some of the work that we do at Wyton looks at kind of mapping terrain, understanding kind of the land build-up. And clearly when you look then at the agri-tech environment that is also very big in the Cambridgeshire area as well. There are technologies that we use that we can probably support some of the work that's going on in the agri-tech business as well. And that's, again, certainly something that our American colleagues in St. Louis already do. They already work very closely with other industries in their area that can take advantage of what we do, and then we can learn from each other of how best to use those capabilities.
And I'm going to embarrass my chief exec that's just walked in. What's been your experience about the idea of a concept of a project to actual reality? Because I've heard the ministers say, you know, and Al Khan specifically say, you know, we've never seen anything move this fast. What's been your experience? Because we have been able to move really quickly. We've been able to use our capabilities to support your ambitions. What's that look like in reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, and that's probably why we're able to be here today talking about Fairfax, having it now at a level where many ministers and other people know about it and want to know about it more, and not just from defence, from across government departments. And really kind of that came from kind of this time last year when the SDR came out. HDC were very quick at generating, and there's new versions there of their kind of supporting the defence sector brochures about understanding how they can do it, and picking up all the things that the SDR talks about and how HDC specifically and then CPCA can support that. So that was kind of one of the primary things. And for us, the reason why we're getting there so quickly is because our desire and where HDC and CPCA want to go came together at the same time, pretty much this time last year. And then we've accelerated that activity because there's interest, there's a desire to grow what we're doing and build where we're going. So I think that's kind of the bit. And obviously for us, particularly when you look at HDC, HDC have a number of people who have been employed specifically to look at supporting the defence sector. That's something that even in Hampshire, which I'll admit is my real home, and clearly home to the Navy, home to the Army, but actually there is probably not as much of that I see going on in Hampshire as I see going on in Huntingdonshire.
And thank you. And I can say from the political space, you know, the interesting thing that brings us all together is, you know, we might all have a slightly different take on, you know, how we would deliver different bits of policy. But what actually unites all of us is we want the best opportunity for our existing residents. We want the opportunity for them to have really good jobs, but we know that really good jobs and the skills that go with it actually lead to a lifetime of opportunities. It leads to the ability to earn a decent wage, to be able to then choose where you might live, then to have a better lifestyle, a more healthy lifestyle, you know, and that's an upward spiral. We might all slightly put a different lens on why we would do certain aspects of it, but it is something that unites us, and being able to talk about that and to be able to harness that and bring ourselves together across the political spectrum and then across the wider sort of public sector spectrum, I think is it shouldn't be unique in our part of the world, but it's starting to feel like it may not be happening everywhere. And I'm smiling at my political leaders from across the spectrum, but the answer is that's a characteristic. If you come to the combined authority here, that's a characteristic of how we work. Your experience of working with us, go on then.
Well, I was just going to add to that point. I think one of the things that really excites me about the North Hunt Opportunity Zone and the way defence sort of links into that is part of the speed of Project Fairfax is also that because we've got incubator space, because we've got buildings that are designed, if not yet built, at Auchenbury, but also we've got old hangars that you can do research and development in. We have the ability to start delivering the sort of civilian side, the tech side, alongside Project Fairfax, alongside the discussions at Wyton. And I think that's where, for me, my old boss in the civil service used to call it strategic opportunism. There's a strategy behind it, but the opportunities are there because we've got this sort of MOD sites. And I love the fact that Auchenbury, RAF Auchenbury for the British RAF during the Second World War was the kind of support base for Wyton. Wyton was the senior base, Auchenbury was the support base. Then the Americans moved in, so it sort of changed into being a more structural within that. But the ability for the two airfields, which from a kind of bird's eye view are incredibly close to each other, slightly different on the current road network, but hopefully with the station coming forward and the bus connections, we can kind of have them again back being a kind of 5 or 10 minute difference between them. I think that kind of the ability to be dynamic, we've already kind of talking to a couple of drone R&D companies about using some of our old hangars in our heritage area as temporary space while some of the other innovation space could come forward at Wyton. So I think that ability, again, it's partnership, it's collaboration, it's having that shared vision which supports being able to deliver in a timely manner, which is what both the defence of our country needs, but also what business require.
was going to say, and I think that's a brilliant offer as well, because the real practical thing is, you'd like boots on the ground today, as in people literally up against the wire working with you. Some of that, we can move at pace, and we are moving at pace, but some of that isn't instant. But we have the capability already to be able to house some of those businesses and those partners pretty much on site instantly while they're needing to do. So that meanwhile use is really, really important. And Julia, what's your experience of working with Combined Authority and with Hunts?
I mean, it's a huge part of it, certainly with the devolution agenda. It's a huge part of what the agency does nationally. And as I said before, it really helps us to be more responsive. We have a shared pipeline. We are really clear on kind of what local priorities are and how we need to support them. And that really helps us kind of, I suppose, tailor the support we can give, work out kind of where to bring in other bits of the agency, other bits of government as well. So it's hugely powerful, and it brings us all together in a really sort of coordinated way. And I think there's a huge amount of opportunity going forwards. I think at Wyton especially, that sort of coordinated governance, coordinated public sector governance to really drive that. Mixed, a huge mix of uses, but a great opportunity. That kind of leadership coordination is going to be really, really important as it matures.
And that's, again, I think that's a characteristic of sort of our area. We're working with all sorts of partners all of the time, and particularly cross-government, because we know that one of the real challenges is, for the best will in the world, sometimes it's different bits of government that do things. And having been a former civil servant, for the best will in the world, everybody tries to talk to everybody all of the time, but it doesn't always quite work like that. I think that's a real strength. So if you come and work in our area and you're not already in our area, that's a characteristic that you'll find at your elbow, a big group of us working together to try and work out how we coordinate, how we unstick, how we make it easy for you to come and be part of this story. Now, I'm going to pause for a minute because I'm going to allow the audience to ask any questions that they'd like to ask. And then I'm going to come back to the panel and say, what have we not talked about that you'd like to talk about? So we've got some microphones. Don't be shy, because otherwise I have to get some people to ask me some questions to get you all started. What would you like to ask us? Or any of the panel? I think Ross might kick us off, because I might have nudged him and said it's a brilliant opportunity, and then I think there's somebody over here. Ross.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much. So Ross Martin, Leader of the Opposition at Huntingdonshire. You briefly touched on the pipeline that Huntingdonshire has. How important is it to have that pipeline of not only that people can move in today, not just from a commercial space, but also from a residential space, but also we're looking ahead to 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, even going forward. We're constantly looking for new sites. And in true politician, so I'm going to pork barrel a second question in for Julia. We're used to Homes England to some extent being we've picked a site, we're going to go for it, we're going to build as many houses as possible on that site. What we found working with you, Julia, and Homes England at the moment is that there is a lot of flexibility in, if this site is better suited for something else, we may be able to unlock a different site, which is exactly what's happening at RF Wyton. Can you just give a few examples of how we've managed to work together on those sorts of projects? Because that doesn't happen everywhere, and I think it is unique to Huntingdonshire.
I mean, I think from the point of view of that pipeline, I mean, yeah, that's kind of the discussion about the opportunities. Whilst, yes, we know we want these people on the airfield when we can develop, when the airfield is ready for development, but we need to make sure that's right. And obviously there are other infrastructure things that we also need to make right there. But having opportunities available now so that people can move into the area when they want to, but also businesses can demonstrate the value. And I think that's the thing for us is if we have a few businesses that do move local but not right on the doorstep, but are able to demonstrate the value to us of what's going on, then that's kind of the bit that's going to be really important to us. So yeah, having that pipeline is really useful.
Yeah, and I think Huntingdonshire and the broader combined authority area, that I think that's where the strategic partnership comes into its own, because there's a much more strategic approach. We're thinking much more carefully about, where are the right locations, where are the right places for those developments, and where our time, where our skills are best focused, and I think that's a huge opportunity here, and it's one of the advantages when you're looking very strategically across multiple sites, multiple projects. You have much more of an opportunity to do that, to think about actually where are the right locations for infrastructure, housing, and everything else that goes with it, and ultimately, as I said before, that we want places that people want to live. So, that's hugely important.
And I think, Paul, just to add to that, I think what I guess the culture of collaboration in Cambridge and Peterborough then enables is, for example, we've been working with the developers looking at Brampton Cross, with the Hinchinbrook redevelopment around things like everything to do with transport, which may become Section 106, but just sort of brainstorming how that might work with the county council teams, with the district council, but also, again, construction jobs and skills is a real challenge at the moment. The knowledge of understanding what that pipeline looks like for building and creating these places also enables us to think about the skills that we need to do that at pace, going back to pace. And that's given us the ability to work with CITB, with the National Skills Academy for Construction at Alconbury and Waterbeach, but also reaching out to Northstowe and others to kind of look at that pipeline of talent that will be able to kind of not just help us to build, but also ensure that jobs and skills are supported with local opportunities, local aspiration for people, because all of this growth has to be of that wider benefit, has to take local communities with us and provide those opportunities. And I think that's where, that sort of broader culture of partnership is so key.
Let's steal the microphone back from you. And a bit of a shout out for Peterborough. Got the fastest growing young population in the country. Got a brand new university. So in terms of our ability to upskill our population, we've got Anglia Ruskin based in Peterborough and also with their campus in Cambridge University. But we have got lots of apprenticeships, and we are working really hard with our new employers when they come on to Patch to say, and what could you help us with? And equally, what do we need to help you with? Brampton Cross is an interesting example, not yet in development, as in, it's still in discussion stage, but I'm really excited about it. And they're talking about, again, co-locating training facilities within that campus, so that actually, as we bring that development forward, you would have training on site for employers, but also for the wider region. And again, it's that sort of thinking a bit carefully about how can we do this in a way that you haven't just got your employers today. I know that one of the things that you've been really keen on, and so is your station commander, is the employees for the future. I'm just going to hand the mic back, and then I'm going to see who's going to put their hand up.
Yeah, so I mean, if we talk about kind of the links with academia, one of the things that I said we need to make sure that we've got the skills that we need to work kind of for us into the future, but we want to start that at the very beginning. We want a youngster in one of our kind of local colleges to understand what opportunities there are for employment at Wyton, and actually then give them the opportunity to map their course and map their career to get to working at Wyton, and then maybe working more broadly in government, or then working more broadly in government. So not necessarily staying in the local area, but hopefully based in the local area, maybe going down to one of our jobs in London, then coming back to Wyton as well. So that's something we want to do. What we're planning, or what we will be doing, is working with our local schools, showing them the skills that we need, showing them how we work, so they get that idea of what the job is. And again, it's that reconnection with society, something that the SDR has said we need to do. So that's kind of where we also want to go.
I think we've got a question over here.
So nice to meet you all. I'm Helen. I'm from Jacobs, and I look after opportunities and clients related to urban regeneration, placemaking, and complex delivery. And it's great to hear all the ambition and opportunities in the area. And I just wanted to understand is there any challenges or blockers that you face, and how can us or just industry partners help you unblock and accelerate to meet your growth ambition?
What a brilliant question. That's a gift of a question. I'm actually going to ask the panel, and then I might chip in. Julia?
I mean, one of the things we've been looking at over the last year is, what infrastructure needs to exist to support growth at this sort of scale. So, looking at the coordination of infrastructure interventions, and that might be transport infrastructure, it might be it might well be other things as well. So we're looking quite carefully at, all of the different jigsaw pieces, I suppose, that will bring this as a project together. So I think for us, that's a real focus.
I think linked to that, one of the bits that we have been working with Homes England and England's Economic Heartland on is about kind of energy requirements as well. Since we started off at Alconbury in 2010, consent in 2014, first homes in 2016, things have changed an awful lot in terms of energy consumption, whether that's EV charging points in homes or the potential for kind of data centers that would support some of the geospatial elements. So I think there's definitely an element of being able to think ahead, and also in a very fast-moving world where battery storage is changing kind of every month, how we start to think about when we talk about infrastructure, we always think about roads primarily, but actually there's a lot of stuff around energy, and clearly water in Cambridge and Peterborough is a bit of a challenge as well. So I think whilst we know some of the answers to those, I think technology and innovation is moving so quickly that, back to kind of Ed's point around, we need to take everybody and all the consultants in the area with us around making sure we're innovative. I think also there is a lot of ambition in this area to make sure that we are treading gently in the way we do this. So we think about sustainable growth, we think about how we can kind of drive down carbon use. I know we've been looking at lots of kind of innovative ways with the County Council of changing highways materials into more recyclable uses and things like that. So I think there's very tactical and practical things, and then there's certainly some support in making sure that the vision can be delivered because it's got the infrastructure in place. And I think also just keeping us true to all of these things. As you say, it's great to have a vision. It's always really hard to turn that into a deliverable action plan. So I think in the same way as we're talking about a whole community approach to this, I think all ideas are good. UK Reef is brilliant for just sort of chucking everybody together and being able to foment some of these discussions. So yeah, keep in touch with us.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's not necessarily a blocker, but it's something that we need to make sure happens. It is that visibility. It's understanding what we're trying to do, us being able to communicate to everybody involved what we're trying to do, what we're trying to achieve, and then reconnecting kind of the society with where we're going. And we talked earlier about kind of the what had been the connection between Alconbury and Wyton, but actually it's not just between Alconbury and Wyton, it's actually between Wyton and numerous other now new developments around the Cambridgeshire area. So Northstowe again, which is another big development, Pathfinder Force was there as well. So our communities were connected through defence, and that's something that we want to kind of reinstitute, is that the defence will become a major, and already is, but kind of a further employer of people throughout the community, and therefore there's kind of that reconnection between places that have previously been connected and can be reconnected now.
And I suppose two bits from me then is that soft landing. When people talk about coming to Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, lots of people, you know, we constantly during COVID ended up in the Daily Mail as places that people wanted to come and live because they look at our landscape, they look at our sort of natural resources, and that is really, really attractive. So I think one of our real challenges is balancing all of this with maintaining the things that really matter to people in their communities. So people really value our water spaces, they really value our green spaces, and so we've got to work really smart to do all of this but not lose all of that valuable nature, and where we do have to look at modifying some of that, we have to work really hard to be smart about it. But I think there's a real opportunity. It's a bit of a theme, I think, in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, is we want to grow fast, but it's not just about growth for now. We have to have growth which is sustainable. And one of the early conversations I had with when we did our defence launch at Westminster was one of the consultants in the room that day very wisely came up and said, it isn't just the energy you need today. If you don't have the energy there in the next 10, 15 years, the companies that come today will not stay. And I took that away and thought very seriously about that. And I think that's about all of our resources. We need your help, but we also need the help of anybody who comes to our area to say, it isn't just today. What we don't want is people coming for a short time and then going somewhere else. Well, we might, because the churn might be useful, and we do want it to benefit the whole of the region, but we want to be able to make sure it's going to be a place that people can start and grow as a business and stay as a business, because we can accommodate them, if not in that location, then just around the corner. And I'll know it's really working when we're rippling from Huntingdonshire out to Fenland, and we're rippling out to East Cambs, and we're rippling out to Peterborough. So in other words, it starts to include the whole of our area, but it's got to be sustainable in all senses. I've got time probably for a last question or so. Gentleman at the back. Okay.
Hi, good morning. James Eady from Endurance Estates and Emerald Tide, promoting Brampton Cross. Question for Rebecca. You mentioned you partnered with the CPCA. What benefits, apart from the fast consenting process, was there in partnering, please?
Well, I mean, as I say, we have been very fortunate, and actually it goes way back to early enterprise zone conversations back in kind of 2012, 2014, with the LEP that became part of the CPCA, with the district council quite key to that. So Auchenbury benefits from having incentives as part of that process, which has been quite key. I think we have a steering group that's really helpfully supported with the district council, the county council, and the combined authority. And partly that is around looking at the pipeline. It's looking at how all of the other enterprise zones in the area work. We know for Auchenbury, the thing that we've got is scale. I mean, a bit like Brampton Cross, you know, there are lots of international investment aspects where actually what they want is the scale, and they need the A1 or they need that kind of connection to make it work. So I think what that has enabled is a real sense as to when there is an interest from particularly a foreign investment or company wanting to come into the area. Sometimes they think they want to go to Cambridge, but they can't afford it, or they need those transport links. And I think what the relationship that we have with the local authorities and the CPCA is that kind of wider approach to how we fit within that ecosystem, as well as very specific support with the incentives and other things. The other great thing with the enterprise zone was it was partly around ensuring that the business rate collections also stays in the local area. So it isn't just about benefiting Auchenbury from getting those companies, it's about making sure there's retention of those business rates to support the impacts of growth locally. So I think it's been a really mutually beneficial relationship. And obviously the other opportunity that we have at events like this, also we've been looking at kind of defence events going to with CPCA and with the district council is giving a platform to some of those future locations and venues for businesses to come in and having that kind of support, which for us as an investor and for future investors as businesses gives confidence and profile, which is really important.
Great question, thank you. So Brampton Cross, if you want to go and talk to them, which is brilliant. I'm close on time, so I'm conscious that we need to be wrapping up. So I'm going to come back to the panel and say, what haven't we shared yet that you'd just like to leave people with as either your parting sort of request for help, or a sort of, please come and have a conversation with me, or something that you really were hoping that we had time to say today, because I think that's really important. And then we will be available for you after we finish this session. So I'm going to pass the mic all the way down to Julia.
I mean, we've talked a lot about the way that the agency is supporting growth in Cambridge and Peterborough. I think we as an agency rely a lot on market sounding and the market letting us know what's going on, what's happening. So I guess all I would say is, if there are more, we've just talked about a project there, if there are other projects out there that are kind of keen to be part of this, keen to be partners, then always helpful to hear from you as well.
I think I would say seeing is believing. So we've spoken a lot today, and hopefully you feel some of the positivity in the room. But if you want to come and have a look, it is real. The things that we've been talking about, we do have, incubators and businesses and at Auchenbury that we can show people around. We've also got the hangars. So if anybody wants a nuclear bunker tour, then do let me know. I think we had 70 people through in this week already doing bunker tours to celebrate as part of Huntingdonshire Heritage Festival. So there's a lot going on, but also I think the ability to turn the bones of these extraordinary places of MOD sites into something special, as Sarah was saying, come and look at the linear parks that we've got, come and have a look at some of that transformation element. We couldn't do it without some of the great designers and consultants we work with, some of the great delivery people, when we've got Morgan Sindel in the room who are building our secondary school at the moment. So it is all part of that partnership. So please do, seeing is genuinely believing. We are very easy to get to, Auchenbury, the Huntingdon rail station, A14, lots of investment gone into the transport infrastructure in that area. So please come and see us, and happy to give people a tour.
I mean, I think for us as Defence, I think that the first thing is the work that we're doing currently with CPCA and HDC. We hugely appreciate the opportunities that that's providing us. This isn't something that I would have come to before, strangely enough. Being a military officer, I wouldn't think about this environment, but actually exposing what we're doing to a broader audience and letting you understand what we're trying to do and seeing how you can support us is kind of one of the key things here. So as I said at the beginning, for some things, there are many things we don't necessarily know about. So if you think that you could be interested in supporting or being involved in some of the activity we're trying to do with Fairfax, then please do talk and we can hopefully work together. But that's really the thing, is thanks to CPCA and HTC for that support.
So I'd like to thank the panel. Thank you very much. We'd like to give them a round of applause. Well done, panel. They've been absolutely fabulous. We will be around. You are very welcome to come and talk to us. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't celebrate one of the really quirky things about Huntingdonshire. We have a farm that includes crocodiles. And they have donated us a bottle of crocodile gin, which I'm reliably informed is made with the crocodile water. But our chief exec has drunk some, not out of this bottle, and has survived. So it's obviously okay. If you want to put your business card in to win a bottle of gin before you leave today, please feel free. I'm going to end it there. We're around, and thank you very much for joining us.